Welcome to the D-Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the D-Shift podcast. And today we are going to talk about something that's maybe a little bit different than some of the other topics that we've talked about. And as always, I have an amazing guest with me. I'd like to introduce you to Jeanell Greene. And as you know, if we have a Canadian on the podcast, we have to celebrate that. So go Canada. We have another Canadian expert here. Jeanell is a relationship coach and marriage expert, and she focuses on helping people rekindle the best friend dynamic for couples, get that sense of connection and that loving feeling going again, and helping to allow couples to stay in the marriage if that's the best option. But if it's not, she also helps people manage processing through the divorce. Is that a good way to put it, Jeanell? And maybe making some changes to help them move forward with a really positive next relationship. So welcome, Jeanell.
Thank you, Marty. I'm so excited for this conversation.
So am I, because I know we've spoken a couple of times, and it's interesting. We always talk about that. What is it? 6 degrees of separation with Kevin Bacon, where everybody knows him. But what I find on the internet, it's so weird how I got referred, Jeanell got referred to me. We got connected through another podcaster. It turns out she lives in Vancouver, Canada. I lived there for a while, and it's a small world when we really get down to this. So, Jeanell, tell us a little bit about what got you into working with couples around relationships, and kind of what your background story is on that.
Yeah, I would love to share that. Thanks, Marty. Well, everything started actually during my first marriage, funny enough. Let's see, so to rewind a little bit, my dad passed away when I was 24. And there was something that clicked into me. And I'm Filipino, for everyone. So I think that creates some little bit of context as far as family and the importance of children and marriage and, that whole culture of it's all about the family. And so around that time, I really started to think about creating my own family. But at the time, I didn't know that I was still processing a lot of trauma with my dad. And I'll share a little bit about that later. But anyway, I met this man, and, sparks flew. We got engaged very quickly. And it was like almost as though as soon as we got married, he changed. I felt like I was just this checkbox. Like he just wanted a wife, but he wasn't willing to be a husband. And so when we got into it, we started to find our rhythm together. I realized that what he needed and what I need were completely different. And I started to get very upset about that, because as a Catholic, it's like, oh, wait a second, this man isn't for me, clearly. And I'm married to this man. So now what do I do? I'm trapped.
Right.
And so I was frustrated. I was alone. I felt betrayed. I felt duped. I felt like he had this mask on and sold himself as the man of my dreams and what I said I needed. And he was like, yeah, that's me. And then when we got married, it was not that. And so I spent 3 years with this man, really trying to make it work, trying to look good for everybody else, right? Because getting divorced was not an option at the time. And there was a moment where I got presented with an opportunity to attend something called the Landmark Forum. And it was really about discovering the blind spots that keep us stuck. And so I said to my ex-husband, his name is Renee, I said, you need to get fixed. We're going to go do this thing and we're going to figure this out. Anyway, inside of that seminar, what I discovered was that when I was 9, my dad cheated on my mom with my mom's best friend, who had a baby, and left. And then he came back. My mom forgave him. And then shortly after that, he got sick and passed away. And we were there when he passed, and we were complete as a family. So I thought that I had gotten closure and that there was no trauma remaining. But after my dad's passing and then wanting to get married and choosing the person that I chose, I realized that 9-year-old hadn't healed yet. And I had to discover what was it that needed to be healed that was in relation to this relationship and all my previous relationships, if I'm honest with you, that just ended badly. And I chose men that I knew were going to hurt me for some strange reason. I was like attracted to the dangerous bad boy. So I had to figure out, like, why was I the way that I was? And so I realized that, watching my dad leave that day, when I found out what had happened, that little 9-year-old discovered 3 things. Or actually, she created 3 new beliefs. And that belief was, I can't trust men, I'm unlovable, and everybody I love will leave me. So once I saw that blind spot was now no longer a blind spot, now I could see the thread that went through every relationship that I had been in, and saw that the reason I was choosing these specific type of man was because subconsciously I knew they were going to leave at some point. So why would I choose a good guy?
Right.
So I just started to really do the work to unpack, to peel all those layers. And at the end of it, I was able to look at my ex-husband and say, listen, I have to apologize to you. I've been blaming you. I have been judging you and, and I've been so mean, and I'm so sorry. And what I got in my seminar was that he's perfect just the way he is. And it doesn't work for me. He's not a bad person. We're just not in alignment. And I got to take responsibility for my part, for me not asking the right questions, for me not, seeing the red flags and not doing anything, just going, just brushing and aside, that's not a big deal. But I, like, in hindsight, I'm like, oh yeah, there were signs for sure.
Right.
I was so afraid to be alone. I was so afraid to be alone and be single for the rest of my life that I kind of just said, okay, whoever the first guy is who wants to marry me, like, that's my one chance. I'm going to take it, even if it's not perfect. And I had to take responsibility for that. And so after that, we completed our relationship. We even went to the law courts together. We signed the papers side by side. We spent $80 because we didn't have kids. We didn't have property. So it was just clean paperwork. And then we went out for dinner. And then he dropped me off at my house. I gave him a kiss on the cheek and we said goodbye. And 3 months later, I met my husband, Mike, now, who I've been with for 18 years. And to me, he is perfection, and he is my best friend, and he's my rock, and he's the inspiration as to why I do the work that I do. And for me, really, this work is about helping our planet heal, starting with us, so that we can become the best role models for our children, because our children are watching us, and they will repeat and attract the kind of partners based on what they see at home.
Right. Yeah.
That's really what I'm about.
So I love that. And thank you. Thank you for sharing that story, because, sometimes it's hard to talk about these personal things. So I really do appreciate that. And I'm guessing that you wouldn't have been attracted or found your current spouse if you hadn't done all that personal work. Like, if you'd have just gone, it's all my first husband's fault. The divorce was all his fault. The failure of the relationship was all his fault. I am perfect. Now I am ready for another, partner. If you don't do any kind of change. And I had not as profound an experience, but I certainly had the same. I blame my first husband for everything. And I'm not saying that in a divorce, it's always a 50-50 split. Like, one partner can have a lot more responsibility than the other partner, but there's very rarely a situation where where one person has absolutely no responsibility in the relationship. And I want to say that with all caution and respect and support of people that are in domestic violence situations. So I'm not talking about if you're in a domestic violence situation. We know the dynamics and the issues for that are very different. But I think we have to recognize, even if we are in that situation, that we still ignored some of the red flags for whatever reason during the dating relationship. Not blaming you, but just acknowledging that we did maybe overlook those or choose not to see what was right there presenting itself. So now you work with mostly men, right, Jeanell?
Well, I have my couples and then I have my private clients who either their partner isn't in the picture anymore or doesn't want to do the work, or maybe they're coming out of a divorce and they're like, I need to find myself.
Right.
But I would say 60% of them are men. And, when I look at my Google reviews, they're all great. But when I read the men's ones, like I want to tear up. Like I really get that I make such a unique difference for men. And I have a certain experience and listening of men that I think most women don't. And I think also, to be truthful, I'm a bit of a masculine woman. And so I think very much like they do. I'm very over analytical. I'm very controlling. I'm very much in my head. And so I can really relate to the way that they communicate or like to be communicated to,
Right.
and what they need in order to have that flip switch in their mind. Because most men are just so clueless, and I'm able to translate the words that might be used, like the terminology, in a way that they get it. So for example, the word intimacy, like men are so confused at what intimacy is, and I'm able to explain in a way they're like, oh, now I get it. But
yeah,
they haven't gotten it for about 22 years.
right. So. And it's so funny because I hear this all the time, especially as a mediator. When I'm sitting in the room with the husband and wife, they're dividing up their assets. And all of a sudden something gets said, either it's from the mediator or whatever. And all of a sudden somebody says, oh, that's what you were meaning. And I'm thinking, yeah. And then when I talk to my clients, they say, I've been talking to my spouse. We need to fix our communication for the last fill in the blank 20 years. And then the spouse says, I didn't know there was any problems with my relationship. And I'm thinking, how can two people that live in the same house be on such different communication levels? So, you work with couples. Let's focus a little bit on that. Because I think that's really unique. I don't think there's a lot of coaches that do couple stuff, although I think there's getting to be more. So tell me a little bit about how that works and who comes to you for that kind of support, the couples work.
Yeah. So back to the men, it's actually been the men reaching out. So I don't know if it's the woman saying to the guy, like, you need to fix this. You need to take leadership and go find us someone. I'm not exactly sure how that happens, but when I get a consult booking, it's typically a man who's booking that consult, which I feel is actually very promising and very exciting for me. And what we do is and how I'm different from, say, a counselor or a therapist is I don't look at the symptoms, because in my world, the problem is never the problem. Like infidelity isn't actually the problem. It is only a symptom of a deeper issue. And so I'm able to intuitively listen in a very distinct way to the words they use. And I can catch really quickly, is it actually a one-on-one thing, or is there more if I lifted the hood, is there more there? And 99% of the time, there is something there.
Right.
So I'm able to point that out so that they can take responsibility for that thing that they maybe perhaps haven't seen until now.
Right.
Especially in infidelity cases.
Yeah.
Where a lot of times the infidelity has nothing to do with the partner. Like absolutely, it could be anyone in that space and they would have done that anyway.
Right. Right.
So
and I think this is really important because so many couples see, well, we went to therapy and therapy didn't work. Therapy is great for certain things. It's not always good for really intense things that need to get resolved quickly. Therapy looks at the past as a way to correct problems for future benefit. Coaching looks at the present and goes, this is what you want to do in the future. So,
correct.
So the reason that this is relevant is because I really think couples need to make every effort to determine if the relationship is sustainable before they go through separation or divorce, especially if there's children involved.
Right. So, yeah. And so I think to answer your question, part of it is that we, as in a people, we love to focus on the problem. And then we work at the problem, and then there's no space for creation, no space for solution, no space for moving forward. And so it's like people want to move forward, but their gear is in reverse. It's every time they hit the gas, they just keep going backwards and backwards into this hole. And so my approach is like, okay, you know what happened? There's nothing we can do about it. But what I want to know is, what is the life that you want for yourself, for your family, and for your future generations? Like, well, we want love and happiness and forgiveness and peace. Okay, great. So let's focus on that. What does that look like? And what are the things that are getting in the way of that? So it is part creation. It is part learning how to communicate your needs. And part of the problem that I see is that people don't even know what they want. So when I say, okay, what does intimacy look like? What does happiness look like? What does joy look like? They're like, I don't know.
Right.
I said, okay, well, then how is your partner going to fulfill your needs if you don't even know what that need is?
Right. Right.
And you're putting the responsibility on your partner to try to read your mind, but you're not even clear. So how are they ever going to win?
Yeah.
And the more that they keep trying and losing, that's when they start to give up hope and lose confidence. And then they just check out because they become so resigned and cynical, because no matter what they do, it is never enough.
Right. And I think that whole mind reading thing is something that a lot of couples do. And I hate to say this, but I think women are really bad at this. Like, I know what I want. Why don't you know what I want? Or I have a, or here's even better. I know what I don't want. Now, why don't you give me what I do want?
Exactly. And of course, we don't communicate the same way. And men think, and here's another thing, men think that, okay, I just need to go help around the house more. I just need, like, it's a doing.
Yes.
But for women, a lot of times it is an emotional thing. And it's a lot of times cleaning up something from the past that they don't have the resources or the tools to be able to articulate in a way that actually cleans up the space so that it's safe to create intimacy and trust. Then they just try to sweep it under the rug and go, don't look over there. We're just gonna pretend it didn't happen. But we all know that all of that stuff, even subconsciously, affects the way we listen, affects the way we view our partner, and affects the way we view ourselves. So we got to be willing to have the courage and the tools, and this is where I come in, to be able to navigate that in a way that when we communicate hard feelings, that it actually lands over there with the other person, that we deliver it in a way that they can hear it, and in a way that doesn't diminish the listening of that person, and that they really they feel seen and heard. Both people feel seen and heard in that situation, and they stopped resisting what's there, because the resistance is uncomfortable. So we don't want to sit in that uncomfortableness, but that is what's, in my opinion, that's what's required in order to transform and have a breakthrough inside intimacy, communication, and trust.
Right. Oh, that's so insightful. And I think the other thing is, I always tell my clients, do your arguments sound like you could just record them, and then when you want to get upset, you could just go to a tape recorder. You could both just stand there and stare at each other and hit the play, and you wouldn't even have to talk, because it's the same over and over. So unless one of you changes your approach, you are a self-fulfilling prophecy that relationship is going to spiral downwards. It's not going to break out of that. Somebody's got to make the change. Yeah, I love that.
Exactly. So it's very counterintuitive. And that's why I say to my couples, it's not your fault that you haven't been able to figure this out, because you guys have been doing the same song and dance, because you only know so many steps. But when you have someone come in and show you a different routine, a different way of dancing together, now something new is possible. But if you're not willing to break that, learn anything and stay to the old routine, you can't expect anything to change. Right. It's the same thing.
And you may go to work with Jeanell or another coach, or whoever you might, or a therapist, and that experience may really solidify that the relationship is not ideal for you. And then at least you have the sense of, you don't walk away from the relationship and wonder, oh, I wish I'd have tried that. And, I have worked with several people who have gone through a divorce, maybe got married again, and then come back and marry a previous spouse.
Yeah.
And those typically don't end well unless there has been a lot of changes, because you just automatically drop right back into that same pattern of behavior you had when you initially went through the divorce. So
exactly.
I know you have a really neat idea about why people may be involved in multiple marriages. So not to the same person, but it's not uncommon to see people that have been married 4, 5, 6 or more times now. What's your thoughts on why that sort of phenomenon is occurring?
Yeah. Well, and this is speaking from experience, right? Like my how I see it is that we have this wound, right? Again, my wound came from when I was 9 and other things as well. But until we deal with it, we will go around trying to find someone who can fill that wound, who can heal that wound for us. And at first, we think, yes, this is the right person. They're gonna my BLNO, they're gonna fill that wound from or heal that wound for me. But at the end of the day, it is our wound to heal, not theirs. And so we go around going, okay, are you gonna fulfill me? No. Okay, are you gonna fulfill me? So we keep going around trying to find someone who's gonna give us the only thing that we can give ourselves. So when we talk about forgiveness and empathy and compassion, that really has to be learned at the grassroots level within ourselves. So if you cannot love and accept people for who they are, chances are you don't love and accept yourself. If you have a problem forgiving others, you're like, I would love to forgive my ex, but I can't. Chances are there's something that you have to forgive yourself for first. So that's why doing the work on yourself is so important, regardless of, again, what you said earlier, regardless if you decide to stay together or not, you're still going to be in each other's lives, especially if you have children. So why not get to a level of at least civil, friendship or some sort of level of respect for each other? Just because the relationship didn't work out doesn't make each other bad people. It just wasn't, the analogy I use is round hole square peg. It's not like the round hole or square peg is bad. They just don't fit together.
Right.
So
right.
Picking out the morality and the meaning of it all makes it a lot more, what's the word? Workable.
Yeah. And I think that's so insightful too, because if you're 6 months to a year after your divorce, you can understand there's still a little bit of maybe animosity, especially if it was a difficult divorce and there was a lot of ugliness between, through the legal system or outside of the legal system. But if you're going much more than a year beyond your divorce and you still have that high level of animosity towards your spouse or your ex-spouse, that's got nothing to do with your ex-spouse. That's got to do with you needing to forgive, because if not, that hatred or anger or hostility that you're fostering, that's going to bleed into your relationship with your kids, with your family, with your coworkers, with your new partners. You can't compartmentalize that level of emotional distress. It's going to go all over your relationship. So you don't have to like them, but at least get rid of that anger, because it's going to do nothing but create toxicity in your life. So yeah.
Absolutely. And a lot of times, if it has been around for that long, I would offer that is a sign that you want to actually go into your childhood and just see if there's anything there. Because what that triggers is, I'm not enough, right? Mm-hmm. I'm unlovable. The same thing it triggered for me. Everybody I love will leave me. Now, those are all just stories that you created. They're not true. But if you live it, like that's who you are, or that men are liars, or, right? All these stories, we will never get to this place called happiness, joy, and connection that we're all searching for. It is just fear and love do not exist. They cannot exist in the same place. And so you have to be willing to confront that ego, those thoughts from childhood, and start to heal and forgive and have compassion for ourselves and go, no, I'm going to be my own best friend. And what would I say to my best friend right now? I would say to her, honey, it's okay. You are amazing. You're beautiful. There's nothing wrong with you. And it is what it is. And that's okay. You will survive, right? We need to be able to be really loving with ourselves like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jeanell, we have covered a ton of a huge wide range, a scope of things here. What do you think you would like people to remember the most from this conversation?
I'm a spiritual woman, so I'm going to come from that. I believe everything in life happens for a reason. I believe that these lessons, these challenges, and obstacles that we're given in life are there to teach us a lesson. And if we don't learn them, they will keep showing up in every relationship we go into. And so be the change you wish to see in the world. Don't wait for other people to be that thing that you're looking for.
What a great message. Jeanell, if people want to reach out and find out more about what you do or contact you to work with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, they can go to JeanellGreene.com or saveourmarriage.ca. And I would love to offer a free consult for anyone who's listening to this. Just go to my website and book a free consult there.
Oh, what a generous offer. Thank you. And all that information will be in the show notes. So you can on any podcast site, just check on the show notes. You'll find the links to Jeanell's website and take her up on that free consult. It's worth your little bit of time and getting on there and talking with an expert. So Jeanell, thank you so much. And I'd like to thank everybody for listening into the D Shift. And don't forget to tune in again to the next episode. Thanks for listening and supporting the D Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.